the Book of Rebekah by Maxwell. Chapter 8. Abraham's Blessing. Abba! Eli jumped up from the little pile of cushions where he had evidently been taking a much-needed nap. His hair was all ruffled and his face bore the imprint of the cushion on one side. Eli, Eliezer hugged his son, dropping down on one knee to look him in the eye. Have you been fitted out with your new clothes? Yes, father. Chaya let me choose the colours and everything. Eliezer looked over Eli's shoulder to Chaya and said, Did he make a good choice, Chaya? Oh, yes, sir. He's been helping us all afternoon, driving us like donkeys to work faster. She smiled at the boy without stopping the skilled movement of her needle. He will make us all very proud in his new robes. Eli beamed and was going to tell his father all about his new clothes, but Eliezer placed a restraining hand on his shoulder so that he could speak to Chaya. Chaya, how are the rest of the things going? Will they be ready in time? Oh, yes, sir. We're almost finished now. All we're doing is the fiddly decorative work on the formal robes. Everything else is done, she said modestly, but he knew what a tremendous amount of work the woman had completed since this morning, and he was suitably impressed. When the men have finished loading the caravan, I will send them to you here, and you can wrangle them one by one, Eliezer said, with a glint of humour in his eyes. Wrangle is the right word. Some of those boys look like they haven't changed their clothes since their mothers sewed them in. Chaya laughed. Just do your best, and we'll pray that God does the rest, Eliezer assured her with a charming smile. He wasn't so afraid of old women. It was the younger ones he had to watch out for. Amen, Chaya declared dramatically. One of the women sitting beside her whispered in her ear. Eliezer was amazed, thinking how just moments before they had been verbally assaulting each other, but now that he was in the room, they were all of a sudden meek and modest. It made him wonder if he'd ever really known his own life. Chaya agreed with the woman. We'll fit your robes now, and then, when we're done with you, Eli can run down and bring the rest of the men in here. Oh, but, Eliezer stuttered, is that really necessary? You know my size, Chaya. You've made clothes for me many times before. Yes, but those were ordinary clothes. These clothes are special. These clothes are for you to wear in front of Abraham's kin, and for that, special attention is required. Eliezer tried to protest, but Chaya was unrelenting. Before he could even catch his breath, he was standing in the corner, and Chaya was pulling a curtain around him. Put these on and let me know when you're ready. For the next half an hour, he was pushed and prodded, spun around and scrutinized from every angle. Chaya made him stand on a little stool to fix the hems, and then left him standing there for a long time while the women looked him over appraisingly. After an age, Eliezer was allowed down off the little stool and declared to be finished. The women tittered their approval and praised his good looks while he tried desperately to control his blush. Chaya, I want each man dressed in these formal robes so that the people can see us leave looking proud. Chaya beamed. Now everyone in the camp would see the beautiful clothes they had made, not just Abraham's far-off relatives. And Eli, run on down to the main storehouse and ask Malky how long until they'll be finished loading up. Yes, father. Eli was about to take off running when Eliezer stopped him. One more thing. Stop by Hannah and ask her if it wouldn't be too much trouble to have our dinner packed up to take with us. I think we'll eat under the stars tonight. Yes, father. Eli looked ecstatic at the thought of it and ran out of the tent at top speed. Chaya, do you think it would be all right if I closed my eyes for a few moments? This morning feels like it was a lifetime ago. Chaya led him to a low couch at the back of her tent and laid him down gently, arranging his fine clothes so they wouldn't be too badly rumpled. Eliezer fell immediately and deeply asleep. So deeply, in fact, that he was completely unaware of the women who quietly came to admire his handsome sleeping form. It felt like he had only just closed his eyes when Chaya gently took Eliezer by the shoulder and shook him. Eliezer came awake very slowly and then very quickly, floating groggily to the surface and then jolting bolt upright so that he almost banged his head into Chaya's face as she leaned over him. What happened? Where am I? How long have I? Eliezer was looking about frantically. Eli? He called for his son. Relax. Chaya soothed him. Eli has been taking care of things. You'll be out of a job sooner than you think. Chaya chuckled and helped Eliezer to his feet, straightening his robes and making him look presentable. Everyone is here waiting for you. Are you ready? Still more than a little dazed, he nodded, and Chaya pulled back the thick curtain that had been separating him from the main room. The brightly coloured tent was illuminated by the many oil lamps. Chaya had removed all the curtain dividers that normally portioned off her tent into smaller rooms to make space for all the men and their wives. Eliezer stepped into the light, and the room became quiet. The men instinctively straightened up, and the formerly bossy wives stepped modestly behind their husbands. "I hardly recognize you all," Eliezer said to the waiting men. Chaya had done a marvelous job. How they were going to look after several weeks traveling in a camel caravan he couldn't say, but for now the effect was remarkable. They were all dressed differently. Each man had an outfit that complemented him especially, but there was a uniformity in color and design that united them. Brun in particular looked about 10 years younger, and it was to him that Eliezer now turned. "Are we fully loaded, Brun?" "Yes, sir." There was a bit of... Brun struggled momentarily. "A bit of wrangling with Malky, but the camels are loaded according to your instructions." "Thank you. And where are they now?" He directed this question to Gabby, who looked exceptionally handsome in dark blue robes. Behind Gabby stood his wizened mother, thick black coal circling her deep-set eyes. "I have put them in the main meeting place with a man to guard each one. They're waiting patiently for now, sir, but I wouldn't want to leave them out there too long. It seems there's going to be quite a party tonight." Gabby's mother pinched him savagely, and wincing, he added another "sir" to the end of his sentence. Eliezer winked at the handsome youth, and turned to his physical opposite, the rotund and rosy-cheeked Boaz. "Boaz, are you satisfied with the provisions?" "Oh, yes, sir. Hannah has provided us with so much food that her shelves are practically empty. They'll be roasting goats tonight and eating the leftovers for days while she restocks her shelves." "Was it necessary to clean her out, Boaz?" Eliezer asked with a smile. "Oh, no, sir, but you cannot argue with a woman once she's made up her mind to do something." Boaz's wife kicked him hard in the ankle, and rather than wince in pain, he smiled a broad, affectionate smile and then unceremoniously shoved her back behind him. "Amos, are we armed?" Eliezer asked. Amos had completely transformed his appearance, looking more like a wealthy merchant than an experienced fighting man, but the pale, intense eyes were the same. "Yes, sir, each of us," he gestured to the other fighting men. "Each of us has 2 swords, one concealed." He opened his robe to show one sword at his belt in the usual position, and then opening his robe further, he revealed a shorter, broader sword hanging upside down with the hilt at the small of his back. Eliezer was impressed. No one would know it was there, but all he had to do was reach behind him, and the hilt would be in his hand. "We also have an assortment of daggers, 8 bows and half the arrows in the camp. Lev wanted us to take more, but even in these quiet times, I should not leave the camp undefended." "Very good, Amos." Eliezer was relieved. "What about everyone else?" "We've given a short sword and a long dagger to the rest of the men, and with your permission, we'll practice together every day so that if we need to, we can defend ourselves." "Good idea, Amos. Thank you." Eliezer was looking for his son, but Amos continued. "Sir, we thought about Eli, but wanted to wait to speak to you first. We thought you might give him this." Amos gestured to Sadiq, who stepped forward with a bundle in his hands and said, "It's a very short, light sword, sir, more decorative than anything else, but I've sharpened it some, and we'll have plenty of time to show him how to use it." Eliezer felt a small lump in his throat at the thought of his boy growing up and getting his first sword, but he didn't show his emotion. Instead, he told Sadiq, "All men must learn to fight." Sadiq breathed a sigh of relief and handed the bundle to Eliezer, but Eliezer held up his hands in refusal. "I think it should be you who gives it to him, with my blessing." Sadiq looked like he was going to cry himself and stepped back into his place with a gruff and gravelly "Yes, sir." As if on cue, Eli burst into the room. "Abba, you're awake!" And then, realizing the formality of the situation, came to a stop a few steps in front of his father. Standing up straight as he had been taught, he bowed his head and said in a strong voice, "Father, I have brought this for you." On trembling, skinny arms, he raised up a heavy object wrapped in thick woolen cloth. It was his father Eliachim's sword, his most treasured possession. Unwrapping the heavy woolen cloth that protected it, Eliezer gestured to Amos, who stepped forward with a thick leather sword belt. As he helped him to put it on, Amos admired the beautiful sword and seeing his admiration, Eliezer said to him in a quiet voice, "Lev was not the only one who fought alongside Abraham in the wars. This sword was also there. God willing, it will bring us success and victory as it did against the Amalekites," Amos said, and the two men exchanged a look of grim determination. Chaya pulled her head back inside the tent and said, "If you're ready, I think you'd better get going. The place is filling up and Abraham's almost in position." "In position? What do you mean? Don't tell me he's out of bed in this cold." Eliezer was outraged. The man could barely walk and the air was sharp as knives. "I heard he absolutely insisted on it. But don't worry, he has Ishmael with him, and the girls won't let him come to any harm," Chaya said. Eliezer and Hagar hadn't always seen eye to eye, but he respected Ishmael's quiet and determined ways. Unlike his flashy mother, Ishmael had a strong sense of fairness from his years of hard work as a boy. He could be trusted to look after his father. Not to mention, Abraham had many young women whose sole purpose was to cater to his every need, ensuring his comfort at all times. Eliezer signaled that it was time to leave with a quick look around the room. Having already said their goodbyes, the men followed him without hesitation out into the darkness, leaving their wives and mothers to discreetly wipe their tears. The entire camp was bustling with activity, as if someone had stirred up an anthill. It seemed that Malki had distributed extra oil rations, because every tent and every person carried a lamp. The night air was filled with laughter and cheers as the familiar figures, dressed in their finest clothing, paraded through the camp in a long line. The crowd thickened as they approached Abraham's tent and the main meeting area. Sadiq and Gever cleared the path ahead by using the simple yet effective technique of glaring at anyone who tried to obstruct their way. As they entered the central meeting place, Sadiq and Gever stepped aside and allowed Eliezer, with Eli by his side, to walk out first. The place exploded in loud cheers. Women were ululating in that high-pitched howl reserved for occasions of great sorrow and of great joy. Abraham's maidservants, those who weren't attending to him, were dancing the rhythmic dance Sarah had brought with her from the home country. Little gold coins sewed the edges of their long garments twinkled in the light from 100 lamps, and their tambourines beat a pulsing rhythm that made the hairs on Eliezer's arms stand up. He could see Abraham seated on a massive chair, covered in luxurious furs to keep out the cold. Eliezer saw that the 10 camels were there, kneeling in a long line, waiting patiently to begin their journey. Each of them had a man to guard them who, paying no attention to the festivities, focused only on the task of minding his camel and keeping the crowd from coming too near. A camel could easily kill a man who failed to take the proper care and attention. The cheering and howling quieted in anticipation as Eliezer stood in front of Abraham's giant chair with the men behind him. Abraham seemed as though he wanted to say something, but couldn't find the words. Seconds passed, and the crowd shifted uneasily. Eventually, Abraham's eyes seemed to come back into focus, but he spoke not. Just as Eliezer was plucking up the courage to say something, Abraham's hand slowly came out from under the heavy blanket and hovered in the cold night air. Taking Eli by the hand, Eliezer stepped forward and knelt so that all Abraham had to do was lower his hand a little for it to come to rest on his head. Abraham's lips moved in a silent blessing and the hand lifted up. Eli was next, and the boy simply had to lean forward at the waist for his head to come into contact with Abraham's hand. Once again, Abraham's lips moved silently and his veiny grey hand lifted. Eli stepped back and stood behind his father, who called out in a clear voice for everyone to hear, "Brun, step forward to receive Abraham's blessing." Brun did as he was asked, and the crowd cheered. The ritual was repeated, and within a few seconds, Brun returned to his place in the line. "Gabby, step forward to receive Abraham's blessing," Eliezer called out. Gabby stepped forward, and the crowd cheered again, this time with a substantial addition from the camel keepers. Several of their camels joined in, and the crowd roared with laughter. Gabby knelt, and Abraham silently blessed him. The ritual was repeated for Boaz, Amos, the 2 Abraham brothers, and Sadiq without change. Each man kneeled and received a silent blessing. It was only when Eliezer called the last man that Abraham's face twitched. "Gever, "Step forward and receive Abraham's blessing," he called out again. Abraham gurgled and coughed, spittle and phlegm appearing on his lips and chin. A maidservant darted forward and tenderly wiped the old man's face, but he waved her away and fixed his eyes on Gever, kneeling in position and looking resolutely at the ground. Abraham, whose hand was now shaking with fatigue, and perhaps also with another emotion, reached down and grasped Gever's chin, forcing him to look up into his eyes. Such a strange and impenetrable look passed between them that Eliezer could not even begin to guess what it meant. Again, Abraham looked as if he wanted to say something, but again, no words were spoken. After a long pause in which the whole camp held its breath, Abraham let go of Gever's chin. He placed his hand on top of his head and silently blessed him. Gever hastily stepped away, and Amos gave him a slap on the back for good measure as he took his place in the line. The maidservants resumed their dance, beating their tambourines and swaying their hips. The crowd, sensing that they had just witnessed a great moment, even if they didn't understand it, took to talking, cheering, and getting on with the general business of having a party. To Gabby, Eliezer said above the noise, "Load us up, Gabby, and take us out of here. I'll lead for now, but stay close beside me." Gabby knew what to do, leading each man to his kneeling camel and helping him to get comfortably seated before taking his place between Eliezer and Eli. Gabby clicked his tongue, and his camel stood up with the typical breakneck back and forward swaying motion. He expertly wheeled around to face the men who were still on the ground, and then, giving them a high-pitched whistle, each of the 9 camels stood up in perfect time with the others. The crowd cheered again, but the noble beasts, each of them with their eyes fixed on their leader, did not flinch. Eliezer steered his camel carefully along the dirt road that led from the meeting place to the edge of the camp. The crowd watched them go, but did not follow. They stayed by the smell of roasting meat and the intoxicating pulse of the tambourines. "Gabby, I want to get up into the hills, not far, just enough to give us some space and some privacy. You take the lead." Gabby, who knew the area well, having spent his entire life roaming with his animals, nodded. He knew a good place. They could be there within the hour. Without a word, and guiding his camel with his knees, he set off in the direction of the hills he'd known since childhood. Eliezer whispered to Amos, who rode directly behind him, "Stay alert. Our departure is no secret. We're just as likely to run into trouble here as anywhere else." Amos nodded, but there was no need to pass the message back in the line. His men had started their work the moment Abraham's hand had lifted from each of their heads. They were now bound by honor to protect this caravan and help Eliezer bring back a bride for Isaac.